It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth, financial literacy educator and speaker, entrepreneur, and chairman of the board of Bank Information. Take charge of your financial future with Your Personal Bank. Now here's Ferenc Toth.
Welcome to the Your Personal Bank Show. Today, I am beyond frustrated. My thoughts, well, first of all, this is what I want to say. This situation that's occurred with people being stuck in Afghanistan, American citizens, allies, people that helped us. I am beyond frustrated. I am saddened. And my heart goes out to the people that have been left behind. Hopefully they all get out safely. Based on history of the Taliban, I don't think that's a very high likelihood that everybody's going to get out, or at least everybody that wants to get out. The level of desperation that's been demonstrated shows that. I think this is a very momentous occasion, a disastrous one, and it's going to have serious impacts for our country, our economy, our money, all those things. And we're going to talk about that further today. But I don't generally, like I said, when I do my shows, I do 2 shows a week. I usually like to hit on the big picture on the product focus more on the personal bank concept on the first show of the week, and then the second one more big picture. But this is so important, I think this needs to be discussed. I find this heartbreaking. I'm searching for words, folks, because the lack of leadership that our current president, the administration, all those folks involved, the military, you name it, showed in the withdrawal from Afghanistan is absolutely mind-boggling. It's going, like I said earlier, it's going to have disastrous, I believe, consequences that are going to impact lack of confidence kind of things that are going to impact us, our economy, our country, our society in many ways. It's no secret, if you've been listening to this show, I've not been a fan of the current administration, of many of the actions that they're taking. You know, I don't have a personal beef with Biden. He seems like a decent guy, kind of guy. And if I was to sit down and have a drink with him or something, or have dinner or spend some time, probably wouldn't have any issue. My issues have been really policy. You know, from the very first day, shutting down the Keystone Pipeline, for example, and then a few weeks later allowing a pipeline from Russia to go through to Europe, which just hurts our energy dependence, jobs, all that kind of stuff. I was very adamantly felt was negative. It was a bad thing for our country in general. And I guess when I say our country, I really should define that. When I say that, I think of the people, the general, everyday folks. For the most part, you and I. Whether we agree politically or not, whichever side of the spectrum we're on, whether we're conservative or liberal or whatever, the independent or any of those things, none of that's all overly important to me. Is what's good for the general public. And so many of the policies that have occurred with the current administration, I have felt very negative towards. I felt they're very disastrous. This is a foreign policy thing, Afghanistan. I have felt for a long time we should not be in Afghanistan. I think that's been a mistake clearly from day one. We went in because of 9/11, the attacks on the 9/11. We were going after Osama bin Laden. There was some thought that he was there, or apparently was there for some time. But once we determined he wasn't there, we shouldn't have been either. There was no real, true strategic reason that I can see. I don't know everything, but there was no strategic reason for America to be in Afghanistan. And I know our soldiers, I'm not upset with the general soldiers. They did their job. In fact, as always, our American soldiers are among the best in the world. And again, they're the regular people, not the leadership. And they created a sense of peace, an opportunity in a country that sorely lacked that, Afghanistan. The average soldier did a fantastic job. And the fact we should have been there or not, that can be argued. Again, my opinion is, why are we there? I don't think we should be in forever wars. I don't think America should be, I don't think we should be the policemen of the world, okay? Where our true, direct, strategic interests are, certainly we need to protect those. But let's be honest, the reason we're in the Middle East, for the most part, has to do with oil. It always has. Terrorism and things like that more recently. But if we're energy independent, as we were for a while, I don't know if we still are, but we've been rapidly going towards not being that, the Middle East would have been far less of an issue, far less important for us. So I think the real long-term goal, the previous administration had it right. Energy independence is the key. Not being reliant on Middle East oil is important for America. It's good for the average American. How's that? It's good for the people. There may be some companies or maybe some big government, whatever, who benefit by us being reliant on that. I don't care about those people. Our elected representatives should not care about those people, although they seem to. But I'm getting off the point here. I guess I'm getting off the point because the utter failure, the utter lack of leadership, the utter disaster of how we left Afghanistan is mind-boggling. It defies words. How an administration, a military, Biden or anyone else for that matter, could think that removing the military first before getting the civilians out was a good idea, which of course allowed the Taliban to take over in a matter of days, the entire country for the most part. I can't fathom why anyone would think that that was a good idea. And as we hear more and more finger pointing and blaming and all that stuff, it seems that we've heard repeatedly this was a decision that Biden made, overrode his own advisors, his own military advisors. I hope for their sake that's the case. But the fact that he did that leads me to two conclusions. One, he did know what was going on. Well, actually, I should say this. He is, unfit for office. This is too big for his shoes. He's not capable for whatever reasons, whether, there's a lot of people that feel his mental capacity isn't where it needs to be, or whatever it may be. This job's too big for him. He's not capable. And that's why there's been some that have called for resignations and things like that. I mean, heads should roll for this, no question. People are going to be abused. People have already died. More probably will. Again, my heart goes out to these people. So either Biden just isn't capable of handling the job, doesn't know what's going on, whatever, or he did know, and if he did know and he allowed this to happen anyway, that's just pure evil. That shows a lack of compassion of people that boggles the mind. I'm not really sure which is worse. They're both incredibly bad. See, a leader makes a difference. Leaders make differences, both good and bad. And what I want you to understand is when we have this utter lack of leadership, again, they either don't know what the heck they're doing. They're a bunch of clowns that have no clue whatsoever, totally disconnected to reality. You have these overeducated idiots. They have their theories and their ideas of what things are, which if you had to, but have no common sense. I mean, I think the people around Biden, the administration, I think that would probably be a good definition for most of them. Okay, or there's just just don't care about thousands and thousands of people who happen, many are U.S. citizens or certainly allies that helped us, just don't care. This lack of leadership or positive leadership will have an impact. It will create a lack of confidence. And that lack of confidence has many layers, has many tentacles. It can go into many, many different areas. I mean, a lot of people have been talking about our country and many countries being less safe with a Taliban in charge of the country, because certainly they've been the number one supporter of terrorism worldwide. I mean, I don't think anyone can consider that a positive. And then secondly, that lack of confidence can carry over into policy, fiscal policy, taxes, the markets, the economy, any number of different ways. I don't know that we can predict exactly what's going to happen. But this I know. This lack of confidence in leadership. I've never had much confidence in Biden from the beginning, frankly. And now, obviously, many more feel the same way if they didn't before. There's a lot of buyers regret, people that voted for Biden when the gas prices went up. Now what? What do they think now? So I see a couple of things that can be done. What can we do? I always talk about how do we address this? How do we protect ourselves? Lack of confidence in leadership certainly can lead to lack of confidence, like I said, in the economy and the markets. It creates an additional risk. It creates an additional instability. If you haven't considered or seriously diversified your portfolio, for example, if you haven't done that yet, gosh, I think now's the time to look at that. And when I say diversification, I don't mean diversifying into various sectors in the market, things like that. I'm talking about diversifying into non-correlated assets. I'm talking about putting a portion of your portfolio into something that has some guarantees, is not subject to market risk. The rising tide raises all ships. Lowering tide. We've heard those things. You really, really need to consider alternatives if you haven't already. Your personal bank, of course, is one of those alternatives where you have guarantees. You can also set up an account where the money grows and you can access it on a tax-free basis. Pass it on the tax-free. Because my wife says this to me all the time, and I've learned this lesson. Desperate people do desperate things. What's going to happen next? We don't know, but stay tuned. Let's talk about that further.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. Today we're talking about lack of leadership. The situation that occurred recently in Afghanistan shows the horrendous level of leadership that we currently have in our country right now. To leave a country, to leave American citizens behind, to leave allies behind, and then later tell them, well, if you can get to the airport, we'll get you out, but you got to get through the Taliban to get to us. And just the week prior or so, the Taliban, of course, were our enemies. We were shooting at them, but to rely on that Taliban, who has been the number one sponsor of terrorism in the world, who even a week before they took over were putting out death to America threats consistently, yet telling people, well, don't rely on them, get through them, and then get to us and we'll get you out. And that's our policy. That's how we treat our citizens. That's how we treat our allies. It's beyond... It's mind-boggling. It's beyond words. I can't even imagine or think why or how somebody could be so incompetent. Clearly, they're that clueless. And if it's not cluelessness, and they knew more and they did it anyway, and they knew that was going to sacrifice people's lives, literally, then that's a level of evil I don't understand. So it's clowns, bozos, incompetence, arrogance, or worse, it's evil. And it's this lack of confidence in leadership that carries over, like I said earlier, tentacles that could affect many. What our enemies are, we have enemies around the world and competitors. Certainly, China comes to mind as one of those competitors, at the very least. It just emboldens them. They're going to do more. They're going to come after us more. They're going to, challenge us more and make our lives more difficult. Better for them, worse for us, right? And that can be in an economic way, militarily way. I mean, look, to leave billions of dollars of equipment in the hands of the Taliban, the worst terrorist supporter of terrorists in the world, do you think that's not going to have some kind of impact? Do you think if some big terrorism event occurs somewhere around the world, partially do it because they now have the equipment, the military equipment to pull it off? You don't think that's going to affect economies around the world, and not to mention people's lives? I'm not encouraging that by any means, but certainly the risk level of that has gone up substantially. And I've not been a fan of being in Afghanistan for 20 years either. I don't think we're a country that should be nation building. I don't agree with that. I think we wasted a couple $1 trillion in Afghanistan, clearly. We went there to go after Osama bin Laden, and as soon as we figured out he wasn't there, we should have moved on. We didn't. Our country stayed, to its detriment, mostly. But then to pull out the way we did, and a lot of people stated this, Biden himself, who overrode his own advisors, to pull. I just can't imagine. You pull out the military before you pull out civilians, and you got the Taliban there. What do you think they're going to do? What kind of level of incompetence does it take to think that's a good idea? I'm not a foreign policy expert, but my gosh, folks, come on. This can't be how our country is led. And we know, we've talked about this many times, this current administration has spent more money than, and continues to want to spend more money than it's ever been spent in history. And I guess maybe on one bright side of this is this lack of confidence of leadership hopefully will lead to a lack of confidence and support for many of these policies, fiscal policies and others, that this disastrous policies, in my opinion, that this administration has wanted to do. Maybe if there's a silver lining, that they're going to lose the ability, certainly lose a lot of political clout, we'll put it that way, to accomplish those things. I mean, that would be good. But I didn't want to see it happen this way. I didn't want people's lives literally to be on the line trying to escape a country that from I mean, that's got to be terrifying. I told you, many times I've told you, and maybe it's a little nearer to my heart than most, because a lot of people say, well, why should I care? It's Afghanistan. It's on the other side of the world. Folks, I stated in the last segment that desperate people do desperate things. This is going to reverberate in terms of reputation and confidence and leadership in Biden himself. And what are they going to do to try to gain that back? What steps are they going to take? What impact is it going to have in our society and in our country? And I guess what I'm trying to say is there's no way to predict it, but there's certainly the risk exists of them doing something really, really more stupid than this, if it's hard to imagine, that could really impact our lives in a negative way. And I stated earlier, the threat of a terrorism event occurring somewhere around the world has increased, and increased substantially. Do you really believe the Taliban are all nice guys again? Because we kicked them out of power 20 years ago, now they're back? They're going to play nice? History doesn't show that. I don't believe that. I don't trust them. I don't think anyone should trust them. And we've seen how terrorism events have affected societies and economies and money and everything else, everything about our lives. I mean, 9/11 is a perfect example of that. How if anybody flew on an airplane prior to 9/11 versus after, it's a dramatic difference, isn't it? 9/11 itself impacted the markets in a substantial way in the economies for years. The risk is higher. The uncertainties are higher. Diversification and reducing risk, market risk, various things like that are more important than ever, in my opinion. Tax policy, what are they going to do there? I mean, all these kinds of things are more important than they were before this all happened. I'll put it that way. Looking to diversify, looking to do something different, looking to reduce your risk has got to be a higher priority today than it was before this Afghanistan debacle. Contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more information. I can show you how we can set up an account that doesn't have market risk, and we can grow the money tax-free and access it tax-free and pass it on to our heirs tax-free and all that kind of stuff. So, again, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more info on that. I'm lacking the words to express how I feel, express the level of disappointment that I feel, because I think leadership matters. I think leaders and the direction of the country matters. And I see what's been going on, and this incredible lack of leadership, this disastrous lack of leadership, saddens me, and I believe it matters. So like I said, we're going to talk about this a little bit further and talk about what do we do now. But contact me at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com for more information.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to Your Personal Bank Show, and we're, again, talking about lack of leadership or disastrous leadership. This event's occurring with Afghanistan, the pullout, and how our current administration handled it. It has to, if nothing else, demoralize our own people, our own troops, encourages our enemies around the world, increase the threat of terrorism. By allowing the Taliban to be in charge of the country again, the way they were, or the way they are, I should say now, is certainly negative for security and safety around the world. A large terrorism event can certainly lead to not only loss of life, but negative impact societies, economies, and all that, worldwide, leaving the Taliban billions of dollars of high-tech military equipment is just an unmitigated disaster on every level. There's just no good way to paint this picture. And like I said, this lack of leadership, or this disastrous leadership that we currently have on display, it makes a difference. It makes a difference on our society and our economy and everything else. I'm not encouraging or condoning any terrorism, obviously. I hope that doesn't happen, but the odds of it are higher, so protecting oneself, diversifying, things like that are more important than ever. Contact me at yourpersonalbank.com for more information on how you can do that, or 866-268-4422. But I don't know that I've ever been as frustrated or saddened, discouraged, disappointed. Discouraged maybe is not a good word, but discouraged. And I was talking to a recent potential client here just the other day, and he was thanking me for sharing how I felt, and he understood, I'm out there, I'm sharing a product, I'm in sales per se, obviously, although I like to educate more, if you haven't noticed. So it's hard to be in that position because you don't want to offend people or upset people, and I understand everybody listening may not agree with me. Certainly, some of you may not agree with most anything I say. I understand that. So I run the risk of, say, offending somebody or upsetting somebody, or they disagree with me, and of course not wanting to do business with me, and losing a potential client or many potential clients. I understand that. But I also understand that there are more important things in this life than just always making a buck. And I'm a financial guy. I'm in the financial world. I have a money-focused show, Your Personal Bank Show. But there are things in life more important than just money, folks. I've said this all the time. And being true to oneself, I believe, is one of those things. Look, you can agree or disagree with me. You have that right. I served in the military partially to help support that right. And I do enjoy a healthy discussion or disagreement with somebody, as long as it's, doesn't devolve into name calling and things like that. But it's important, and our ability to live our lives the way we want to live, enjoy the freedoms that we have, and to be able to say, go out and make money, or invest, or own a business, or expand, or live the way we want to live, or pass on is all dependent on these things, these freedoms and things that we enjoy. And freedom's a fragile thing. Ronald Reagan talked about freedom needs to be, each generation needs, freedom's not free, and many people talk about it needing to fight for it each generation. And this has been our fight. We have a current leadership that I believe is so disconnected, their focus is so different than what the typical majority of Americans really want. And it's so different than what our society has been. And they're so, they're just, I guess, I don't know if they're isolated. They're overeducated idiots. They don't have any common sense. The lack of understanding is mind-boggling. The ultimate solution is we just got to get these people out of office. Vote them out. Whatever, we got to get these folks out, right? So these next midterms, the way I'm feeling right now, if I think it was going to happen now, it'd be a slaughter fest, right? In terms of election, I'm hopeful that's the case. This incompetence is on display is unreal. Like I said, I keep searching for the words, and I guess there just aren't any. There just aren't any words to describe how bad our current leadership is and how they've acted by leaving people, Americans, allies, their lives at risk, literally, and counting on a group like the Taliban. It's unreal. I've never seen anything like it. So let's finish up in the last segment. Let's talk about some things that we can do going forward, maybe a little bit more positive note. So stay tuned. Don't miss it.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. Back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. We're going to wrap this up. We've been talking a lot about the lack of leadership with this Afghanistan pulling out disastrous leadership and the effects of that. Of course, those things impact our society, our economy, our people, our attitude even. And I've even allowed it to some degree for disillusion me a little bit because, we don't. Who likes to lose, and who likes to just give up? And like I said, I didn't believe we should be there. Afghanistan, we had no business being there. We should have. But if we're going to do it in a professional manner. I mean, my gosh, you pull out the civilians first. Come on, how complicated is that? And then once all the people are out, then you give them a deadline. Hey, we got till this point in time, this date to get out, and then the military's leaving. Okay, fine. That would have been work. That would have worked. It would have been orderly. It would have been calm. There wouldn't have been people's lives literally at risk or in the hands of the Taliban of all places. Here's the thing. This past year or so has been trying. It's been challenging. It's been different in so many different ways. There's been attacks. I've talked about this many times. Attacks on freedoms. the direction that many of our the leadership that was in place, so vastly different than what we've experienced or lived previously. What are we going to do about it? And they keep consistently, like I said, I'm not surprised by anything anymore, but they just keep proving that how much, again, incompetence or dedication that they have to moving this country in a different direction. What are we going to do about it? Is this going to be the beginning of the end? Or is this going to be a new beginning? The midterm elections are going to be huge, I believe, unlike any midterms we've ever seen in maybe our country's history. Pretty darn close. In terms of taking direction, changing the direction of the country back or continuing down the path that we've been going for this last year or so. Those actions, those directions that we go, the directions that we are going, are certainly going to have significant impact on all of us. Whether we agree with the directions we're going, whether we're involved with it or not. See, here's the thing. If, for example, tax policy changes and they increase taxes on everybody who earns income or has a business or whatever, whether you voted for that policy or agreed with that policy or not, you're still going to be subject to the effects of it, aren't you? If by leaving Afghanistan in the disastrous manner that we have and literally giving billions of dollars of high-tech military equipment to a group like the Taliban, the largest supporters of terrorism in the world, if that leads to a major terrorism event again, that will have a significant impact on our society, on our psyche, on our attitudes, on our economy, on our money, on all of those things. They're all tied together, folks. And whether you were involved with it or not, whether you agreed with it or not, whether you stuck your head in the sand or not, if you cared or not, it'll still impact you. So a few things to do. I've been mentioning it briefly throughout the show. Diversify. 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 Higher risk situations, higher potential risks of uncertainty is when diversification starts becoming a key. And I've talked about this, and I encourage you to go to yourpersonalbank.com. When I say diversify, I mean diversifying into non-correlated assets. So in other words, I'm not talking about diversifying different sectors and on the market, for example. I'm talking about diversifying in things that have guarantees without things that don't have market risk, for example, a portion of your portfolio. Why? We have a major look. I mean, go back if you want to go look at the history and the charts. What happened after 9/11? Dramatic impact in the markets and the economy. Okay, those kinds of things make a difference. You think if there's a major terrorism event somewhere in the world, Western world, it's not going to impact people? I mean, first of all, you have loss of life. But it also impacts people's the psyche of people and the economy and markets. It has an impact. So, like I said, go to yourpersonalbank.com. If you want more information or contact me at 866-268-4422. I'll show you how to diversify in a non-correlated asset, minimize future tax liability, gain access to your money, have a lot of liquidity, create some positive arbitrage, okay? All these kinds of things we can accomplish, all right? But where are we going to go from here? What is the direction going to be? That's the real big question. And I guess as bad as this situation is, and like I said at the beginning, my heart truly goes out to the people that got left behind who have had to deal with, basically our country, our leadership, put their lives in the hands of the Taliban. I hope and pray that every one of them that wants to get out does so and gets out without injury or worse. I'm afraid that won't be the case. But the thing is, what is going to happen? What are we going to do? What direction are we going to go? What kind of society are we going to have? And maybe, just maybe, the big picture, the silver lining of all this is history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. I think Mark Twain said that. You know, we had a Jimmy Carter. We had high inflation. We're dealing with that right now. We had high gas prices. No question, we're dealing with higher gas prices right now. We had a real lack of confidence in world leadership. We had the Iranian hostage crisis. Those of you many of those remember that. We had as a country, we didn't feel very good about ourselves at the time. And Jimmy Carter even had a famous speech he shared called the Malaise speech, where he basically blamed the American people and everything else and everyone else for the place where we were at. People kind of held that against him, and a Carter led to a Reagan. Is there another significant shift like that on the horizon? You know, I always say it's darkest before the dawn, right? So there's certainly some positive sense of hope that we can right this ship. I don't think the ship is sunk. I do believe, I heard somebody talk about this, I love this analogy, and I thought it was so appropriate, where our country stands today. It's like this. We're the Titanic, and we recognize that we're headed towards an iceberg. We have seen the iceberg in plenty of time to turn away from it. The question is, are we going to turn the wheel or not? That's where I believe we're at. So there is certainly reason for hope. There's a lot of people stepping up. And like I said, the shorter term silver lining is the current administration and the current political party unquestionably have continued to want to increase spending, which we've already spent far too much, in my opinion. We've printed far too many dollars. Inflation will be an issue, and how to offset that, I've shared this many times. You want to invest in assets that are interest rate sensitive. All right. Higher interest rates generally are bad for business, which is bad for stocks, which is generally bad for the markets. There's exceptions to the rule, of course. Real estate, tangible assets can increase in value in inflation, but unfortunately, today's markets, most real estate markets are far overpriced to where they, have been, and most people feel that they're in a bubble. We have these mortgage rent evictions that are expiring soon. What's that going to do to the real estate market? So there's a lot of uncertainty there. So an interest rate sensitive asset makes a lot of sense when you're in a situation where interest rates are at all-time historical lows. As inflation continues to grow, interest rates will probably go up. The Federal Reserve also going to be forced to raise interest rates at some point, and dividends increase as a result. So your personal bank's well-suited, well-positioned to be a tremendous diversification strategy. But like I said, the bigger picture really does boil down to is, where are we going as a country? And as frustrated and discouraged and angry and heartbroken for the people that are stuck, or got stuck in Afghanistan, and they're going to try to paint, this, the media, the politicians, they're going to try to paint this in the best light possible. A lot of finger pointing is going to occur, but folks, you can't put lipstick on a pig, right? This is bad. This is disastrous. This was horrendous decision-making and actions by the leadership. It wasn't the soldiers. The soldiers didn't lose this. It was a lack of leadership that destroyed this situation, that created more uncertainty in our world, gave military assets to a terrorist organization, or an organization like the Taliban that supports terrorism. It's the leadership that did this. The leadership we have currently is horrendous. And I guess what lesson are we going to learn from that? Look, I wasn't a big fan of Trump personally. I was a fan of his policies. I was open about that for a long time. I had many Trump supporters, including my own wife, I would argue with, because there were a lot of people who liked him. I thought he was coarse and rude, and I didn't like his tweets or anything like that either, and I was open and honest about that. But I did support him. I did vote for him. I did like his policies. I thought they were, generally speaking, very good for our country. And I mean our country, the people, the everyday folks. The economy was good, taxes were low, terrorism, the wall, that we wouldn't have a lot of illegal immigration. Terrorism was not an issue for the, a lot of good things. Less bureaucracy, less red tape. All those are good things. But I understand personally, and I understood why people didn't like Trump. I mean, he voted for Biden. The majority polls show that voted for him because he wasn't Trump. It was a personality thing. They didn't like the tweets. And I always would say, then turn it off. Nobody said you had to be on Twitter or even log into that. You didn't have to listen to it, right? And I know the media had an obsession about Trump. Seems like they still do. Change the channel. There's so many resources today. You can go anywhere you want. I don't even watch the regular TV anymore. I do it all by YouTube because, well, one, there's fewer commercials and I can watch what I want, right? In other words, just take control of what you want to take control of what you're listening to. In other words, stop. What you do, speak so loudly what you say I cannot hear. People forgot that. And it became a personality thing. I truly hope that people learn their lesson from this and realize, policy matters. What an administration does and what the leadership does matters. The direction that they steer our country matters. Tax policy, economic policy, foreign policy, all these things and how they treat Americans in general, well, it matters. And my hope is that we as the people learn that lesson and we find somebody and people who actually represent us, not the big business interests, not the political interests, but actually represent us. Just don't vote for somebody because they got an R or D in front of their name. Find out what they stand for. It's easier than ever. You can do research online before you vote, but vote for somebody that at least follows or seems to follow your principles and what's important to you. As always, for more information, contact me at yourpersonalbank.com or call me at 866-268-4422.
For more information on Your Personal Bank, feel free to contact Ference at yourpersonalbank.com. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guest on this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Products and riders may have limitations and may not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Compare when considering a replacement. Dividend rates and baseline of credit rates may change. Contact yourpersonalbank.com for current rates.